using your software. I mean, it was part of before they knew you were coming. So you know, the MyTech, the public-private partnership will be utilizing Siemens software. So without further ado, thank you very much, Mr. Siemens.
Special thanks to Lieutenant Governor Keynote for inviting me here today. It's always great to be back in Ohio. I get back here several times a year, except for the fact that on the plane last night coming here, one of the flight attendants asked me whether I was Donald Trump's brother. Yeah, so I guess it's sort of good to be back, but that might be my next career. Yeah, so it's great to be here on behalf of the 50,000 people who work for Siemens USA and the over 2,000 people that we have right here in the great state of Ohio. I'm going to talk today about, not just about Siemens, but I'm going to talk a little bit about what's going on globally, what's going on in the U.S., not just with Siemens, but what I see happening in the world. And also talk a little bit about what we're seeing in Ohio. And more importantly, the topic here, smartphones to smart factories, what's really happening in the digital industrial world and what that's going to mean for skills and what it's going to mean for attracting talent. I think we are headed into one of the most trying times in the history of the world. With what's going to happen. I'll talk a little bit about what's been happening on the consumer side, but the next thing that's coming is what's going to happen on the industrial side. And I think it's more important than ever that we get governments, federal government, state government, local governments, working very closely with educational institutions and corporations to really understand where jobs are going in the future and what we need to do. So, you know, if you go back to Washington, D.C., that's where our headquarters is. Our D.C. headquarters overlooks the U.S. Capitol. You can basically walk across the street and down onto the National Mall. I was thinking the other day when I went out to lunch that in January there's going to be an inauguration here of the next president. So that's one big thing we have coming in January. But there's something else that's coming up in January. It's a big milestone in U.S. history. Does anyone here have any thoughts on what it is? What happened in January of 2007, 10 years ago? No? Well, this is what happened. It's only been 10 years. In fact, if you take a look at the massive change that's happened in the world since the introduction of the iPhone, it's almost startling. I won't go through all the facts, but it'll be 10 years since Steve Jobs walked out on the stage and said these famous words. Every once in a while, a revolutionary product comes along that changes everything. On January 9th, 2007, Apple released the first version of the iPhone. And during the presentation, Steve Jobs spent a lot of time talking about the phone's hardware. He thought at the time, the hardware, the phone itself was a pretty neat thing. But I think as we all know, it turns out that the iPhone, the hardware itself wasn't very special, but it was the software and the millions of applications that got written on that software that have really changed the world. If you take a look, software has really disrupted the economy in many, many ways, in particular, as I said, on the commercial side. And now there's evidence, as we take a look at what it's going to mean for the rest of the world. If you take a look out there today, the top 4 S&P 500 companies now globally, the 4 wealthiest companies in the world now are all software companies, and 12 of the top 15 most valuable companies in the world, that's publicly traded companies, are software companies. And that doesn't count people like Uber. Uber is basically a software, just think of a software company with 2,000 employees, has a market capitalization of $68 billion, which would put it in the 25 wealthiest, highest capitalized companies in the world. Siemens has been around for 170 years. I like to say we're one of the oldest, biggest companies. We operate in almost 200 countries. We have 350,000 employees and over 1,000 manufacturing plants. Our market cap is $90 billion. 350,000 employees. Here's a company with 2,000 employees only 9 years old, 8 years old, worth $68 billion. It's basically a software, writing algorithms. If you look at what we're going to see, you take a look at that, what's happened with Uber, what's happening in a lot of companies, Airbnb, Netflix, all of these companies. Airbnb doesn't own any hotels, it's now has the highest market capitalization of any hotel chain. You take a look at Netflix, it has a higher market cap than any of the movie companies. They don't own any movie theaters. Uber is the same, as I said, with taxis. Basically, they're asset light, but they're using software to drive massive disruption. So what's going to happen now on the industrial side, because if you take a look at the industrial world, it's at least 10 to 15 times bigger than the consumer world. And we really haven't seen that kind of disruption yet in the industrial world. But we think we're now on the verge of the fourth industrial revolution. In Germany, they call it Industry 4.0. It's called lots of things around the world. The Lieutenant Governor and I were together over in Hanover at the Hanover Messe in Germany this spring. Huge, it's the biggest industrial conference in the world. 22 tents, they call them. Each of them is 2 football fields by 1 football field loaded. And the topic of the day was the industrial internet, the IoT, Internet of Things, Industry 4.0, everywhere you went in terms of what's going to change. So the energy around creating all these applications for smartphones, we think is going to start being invested in things like smart factories. But not just smart factories, the smart electrical grid, smart oil and gas fields, smart roads, smart rail systems, smart buildings, smart hospitals, you name it. There's going to be massive change coming across all those industries, and we're already seeing it in some of the areas that we're working in. So the software-driven industrial world that we're now talking about proliferates across the world, across the U.S., and across Ohio. It's going to drive major change. And our thinking is, too, that it's also going to rebuild the middle class. So this is, I think, the opportunity to really put together an interesting story about where the middle class is going. A lot of this last election is around the people who've been left behind. If we don't fix the problems that I'm going to talk a little bit about, we're going to leave a lot more people behind. We're going to leave behind very fast. Because this industrial revolution that's coming isn't going to take 20 years. It's going to take 5 to 10 years before there's massive change and disruption. So, like I said, I'm from Youngstown, Ohio. At the time following the war, it was the second biggest steel producer in the United States, and 4th biggest in the world. If you take a look at Youngstown today, it's basically a shell of itself. In 1977, which was the year after I graduated from high school, we called it Black Monday. Basically, the two remaining steel mills in town closed. 50,000 people were put out of work, and the ripple effect was massive. When I was growing up in Youngstown, it was 300,000 people. It's now 100,000 people. Talk about my grandfathers. My grandfathers both immigrated from Germany. They both worked in the steel mill. One worked at Youngstown Sheeting Tube, one worked at United. And when I was growing up, I thought one day that I might work in manufacturing. I always told my grandfathers I don't want to work in the mill. I want to run the mill. But they kind of laughed and said to me, especially after Black Monday happened, that you might want to think about what you do with your career. So the advice of my grandfathers and my father was, you're a big guy. You could be a pretty good football player. You have to go out there on Saturday and knock people down. If you knock people down, you're going to probably get a football scholarship and you'll be able to get the hell out of here. And my dad, I remember the day I left to go, I did become pretty good at football. Not good enough to play for the Buckeyes. I ended up going to Harvard and playing football. And my dad told me when I left, don't ever come back. And he was right. I left in 1976. In 1977, all the mills closed. Everybody was out of work. People were scurrying out of Youngstown. And my dad, I had 2 younger brothers, and my dad basically told them the same thing. So he said, when you get out of college, you need to go do something else because your 2 younger brothers are both going to live. That was back then. But today, I've come back to Youngstown many times. And I think they have a new marketing slogan there, from Rust Belt to Tech Belt. We actually gave quite a bit of, we've given back quite a bit to the Youngstown area at Siemens. We actually funded a $440 million software grant to Youngstown about 4 years ago. The software package is the world's leading industrial software package used by 80% of the automotive industry, 70% of the aerospace industry, 50% of the food and beverage industry. Even Callaway uses it to design their golf clubs. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. It's called Product Lifecycle Management Software, and it's really helping to drive this big software revolution in the industrial world. The president also put America Makes, which is an additive manufacturing 3D printing hub in Youngstown. We also donated software to the hub, and we were one of the first companies to sign up and be a part of that. So we're hoping that really takes off. 3D printing is another thing that is changing the world pretty dramatically. We work with several small startup auto companies around the world who are now 3D printing cars with software. And if you want to check it out, you go home tonight, look up Local Motors and click on their video. At one of the recent auto shows, they 3D printed a car during the show and drove it off the stage. I recently saw them 3D print an autonomous electric bus in Washington, D.C. and drive that up onto the stage. That was actually crowdsourced with engineers from all over the world. So a lot of new business models that are happening here. And again, this is what we're going to see with the digital age. You're not going to see, I think going forward, you're not going to see mile-long auto plants being built anymore. What people are now talking about is you'll see hundreds of smaller plants around the world. Distributed digital manufacturing will become very commonplace. We're already 3D printing between 30 and 50% of all the replacement parts on all the medical equipment, power plants, trains, et cetera, around the world. This is only going to get much bigger. So the whole manufacturing footprint in this country in the next 10 to 20 years is going to change pretty dramatically, and it's going to be led again by software in this new digital world. So Youngstown State, as I said, we've invested quite a bit in Youngstown State. Youngstown, as I said, was the first place where President Obama put this incubator. And after the manufacturers left town, the region became, I think, more known as the Rust Belt. I think they've done a good job of connecting Cleveland, Pittsburgh, and Youngstown together and start to look at attracting jobs in that region. So again, we were talking about Canada earlier and all the interaction with Canada. I think we need to get more creative about how we link some of these regions together, even across state lines, across country lines, to be successful. Actually, Youngstown State's interesting too because former Ohio State Buckeye coach Jim Tressel is now the president of Youngstown State University. So we engage a lot with him, and Jim is doing a lot to bring more investment to Youngstown. He's quite a good salesman. I can attest to that. So where is manufacturing going? So this is one of our plants in Augsburg, Germany. I don't know whether you got a chance to go to this plant. It's not too far from Hanover. There's about 1,000 employees there. This is the most modern manufacturing plant in the world for programmable logic controllers. Basically, the technology that runs factories. If you go into most of the automotive plants in the country, most of the aerospace plants, they're using our technology to run the assembly lines and the robots. This is the technology that makes those assembly lines and robots. There used to be 80% of the people who used to work on the shop floor and 20% worked in engineering and computer science and design. Now it's the other way around. There are very few people on that shop floor because they only touch the chips when they come in and when they come out and put them on a truck. Everything else is done by robots and automation. There are still 1,000 people who work at the plant, but they all are basically engineers, software developers, programmers, cyber analysts. This is how the world has changed. This is a look at what the future of manufacturing is going to look like across all sectors. This is way ahead of its time for now, but this will be pretty commonplace in the next 5 to 10 years. The implication for that is the people who used to work on the shop floor no longer can work on the shop floor. The skills required to work on the shop floor are vastly different than the skills that existed even 5 and 10 years ago. So all of those people either had to be retrained or they lost their jobs. In Germany, they have huge training programs, so a lot of it was retraining people. They also have a huge apprentice program, which I'll talk about, which starts students in high schools, in high school, even before high school, so that they get training before they come out of school. But the world is going to change pretty dramatically. I think we're going to see more and more. If you take a look, if you go into a modern, how many of you have been in one of the newer automotive plants? Yeah, I mean, if you went into an automotive plant 5 or 10 years ago, and you take a look today, it's a totally different environment. And most of the automotive plants in the world still today don't have this level of automation technology, digital technology, and that's all coming pretty quickly. So it's not only what's happening on the shop floor that's happening. The way products are designed today is changing pretty dramatically. And if you take a look at the people out there who are disrupting the world in terms of the design, they're disrupting the world because, again, they're using software to do that. So probably the world's most famous innovator now is Elon Musk. How many of you have heard of Elon Musk? He founded PayPal, sold that, made a lot of money, founded Tesla, which is now the fastest growing electric vehicle company. He uses the PLM software, product lifecycle management software I was talking about. He also founded SpaceX, so he's trying to disrupt the space industry. So the automotive industry, the space industry. He also came up with an idea called the Hyperloop for a 600-mile-an-hour train. We're the world's largest maker of high-speed trains. He wants to disrupt transportation and trains. Pretty amazing guy, and he's really disrupting things with software. Let's take a quick look.
Sort of 2D way. And we're trying to create these 3D objects using a variety of 2D tools. And it doesn't feel natural, it doesn't feel normal the way you should do things. So we started playing around with the idea and using a few of the things that are available out there, such as the Leap Motion and Siemens NX, which is what we used to design the rocket. And we wrote some code to integrate the two. And we started off with what you see here, which is
cool. The reason I show that is because one of the ways that Elon Musk has been disrupting the automotive industry and the aerospace industry is he's cut the number of engineering man-hours required in half by using the software. Okay, so he can change platforms, he can change designs, he can change materials and things very, very quickly using the software. You don't have to build pilots, you don't have to build prototypes, you can do it all on the computer. It's what they call going from the virtual to the real. Anything I do on the computer, I will know whether it can be done on the rocket or in the car or in the manufacturing floor or in the assembly line. So it cuts the development time dramatically. And that's one of the ways he's been disrupting traditional competitors in this space. And a lot of people are scrambling to keep up with it. At the end of this video, he says, Elon says this is going to revolutionize design and manufacturing in the 21st century, and it's going to disrupt whole industry segments. I didn't get to show that. At the end of this, he takes a piece of the Merlin rocket that he showed there, and then he 3D prints it. And so he's saying that we're going to start 3D printing whole rockets. You know, by the way, does anyone know where we buy our rockets from today in the U.S.? What's that?
Yeah, the 180.
Russia, absolutely. So he's been going to Washington, D.C. saying, we have sanctions on Russia, where are we buying U.S. rockets? Why don't you buy the rockets from me? So we just got a big chunk of the last order of rockets and stuff. So again, a pretty innovative guy. He wants to disrupt lots of industries. And again, he's going to do a lot of that disruption with software. But this digital world, as I said, one of the ways he's doing is he's cutting out so it's not even production workers. He's cutting out high-end skills like engineering and design. But the jobs that are being created here are much higher skilled, much higher paying kinds of jobs. This is the challenge we have in front of us. So it's not even traditional engineering job. What we're teaching today in engineering, this is much more advanced than what we're teaching. That's why we donate and grant this software to hundreds of institutions around the world. Interestingly, we've granted, Ohio State has received a big grant. In fact, I'll come to that in a minute. Let me go through for a minute what's going on in the automotive industry. But we grant this to universities around the world, in the U.S., even community colleges. In other parts of the world, like China and Germany, we also grant it to high schools. We have real difficulty granting it to high schools in the U.S. Does anyone here know why? Because less than 20% of the high schools in this country even teach any computer science. So there's basically no one to teach. There's no one to use the software with the students. Whereas in Germany, we're granting it to well over half the high schools in Germany. So young Germans and young Chinese are being trained with the software in the classroom. Everything we make at Siemens, think about this, everything we make at Siemens is made with software. And also all the execution is now, all the service businesses are run with software. Yet less than 20% of the high schools in this country are computer science. We're still teaching the same stuff we taught in this country after 1945. It's the same stuff. Right? So we've got to not only get up to speed, we've got to start thinking about how we're going to leapfrog. Because otherwise we're going to be left behind. Don't worry about other states in the U.S. or not just Canada. You're talking about, these are global industries. The automotive industry, the aerospace industry, these are big businesses that require us to think big. And it's not just training the current workers about how to get them in line with this, but it's training the whole next generation of people who are going to be working 24/7 like this. And many of them already are. So let me just talk for a minute about what's going on the shop floor as well. So, so one of the, if you take a look at what's happening in the automotive industry, if you go back to 1913, this was the Ford was the first company in the world to put an assembly line in place. I think Henry Ford had a famous saying that you can have anything you want in a Ford Model T as long as it's black, right? And for years, when I was growing up in industry, I was a consultant for 25 years in a business school, getting my MBA. People said, you know, there's this trade-off between having a lot of variety and adding a lot of cost. If you want to add a lot of variety to the things you make, you're going to add cost. And so every time if you want to run not just different colors but different platforms, if you want to have a manual versus an automatic in your car, you want to have different configurations in your dashboard, if you want to have different brakes, all of those things would add money and add time to the manufacturing process. Well, no more. So this is the latest Ford plant. This is our technology with a Ford F-150. The Ford F-150 is the leading selling vehicle in the United States, and I think the second leading selling vehicle in the world. Okay? They now make millions of varieties of the Ford F-150. Basically, every F-150 that comes off the line is different. How do they do it? With the software. So the software, the computer-aided design, engineering, manufacturing software, they do it on the software. The software tells the PLCs and the control systems and the robots what to do on the assembly line, and it makes all the changes automatically. It can even change the configuration of the assembly line. Right? All done with the software. You don't have to prototype, you don't have to stop the line, you don't have to reset it. It all gets done with the software automatically. Now this is one of the most automated factories in the world. A lot of people are trying to catch up with that. The Germans have been spending a lot of money on it. The Japanese have been spending a lot of money. A lot of the U.S. companies are spending a lot of money. But it's called lot size one. Basically means I can make anything I want for about the same cost. And I can do it much faster. And I can design these things now. I can design these things in 18 to 24 months. I don't have to take 3 or 4 years to design a new car. And a lot of the newer companies are thinking they can get it down to a matter of weeks, not months. But, so that's taking a lot of the people on the shop floor aren't there, and a lot of people who are designing and engineering these things. They're taking out a lot of engineering hours. The software is going to be very destructive to the existing workforce. This is just the automotive industry. This will work through many, many other industries. So, what we've been seeing is something that I would call the skills gap. You've read a lot about this. There's a big debate. I've probably did 20 or 30 talks on it. People like to tell me that there is no skills gap, and I say, well, we have 75 plants in the U.S., and we really struggle to hire people. We've built 3 new plants in the last 5 years. One of them in Charlotte, North Carolina. It's a very modern, advanced manufacturing plant that makes gas turbines. With all of the new gas we have from fracking in this country, we're looking for more gas plants, power plants to be built. So we built a very large gas turbine manufacturing plant, very modern, very automated plant. And that plant, when we went to set it up, we needed 1,000 more people. We got 10,000 applications. Pretty quickly screened it down to 1,500 people who we thought were qualified. We gave them a test in 3 areas: basic math, some basic technical skills, and reading and writing, some something like an 8th grade level. That knocked it down to 300 people. And then of the 300 people, a bunch of those people had drug and alcohol problems. We started with 10,000. We realized pretty quickly we weren't going to be able to staff the plant. We were a year out. So we basically said, we're going to have to train a lot of people. So we found qualified people to train. We went to a local community college, and we told them, we're going to help you write a curriculum called mechatronics, which is what's needed to staff people in modern advanced manufacturing plant. And then we sent all the professors who were going to help teach it over to Berlin to get trained. And then we said, we trained 800 people, and then we basically went through and staff, put together an apprenticeship program. We got the German apprentice model, and we basically are now putting about 15 people a year through that program, so we have a continuous flow of people going to the plant. We've also brought the German apprentice model over to 4 or 5 other plants. And everywhere we go and set this up, we get a bunch of other local companies who jump in and do it. Might be something we want to talk about here in Ohio. We have a couple of large plants here in Ohio in terms of going through an apprentice model. But the concern is that as we move to this new environment, in every state we go to, they say we have the people. We put a new wind turbine plant in Kansas, a new blade plant in Iowa. Everywhere we go, people say they have the qualified people, and what we find out is with this new advanced manufacturing world, this new digital world, most places don't have the people. And these are, of course, very high-paying jobs. So even for the production jobs, we're really struggling to get the numbers, the types of people that we need. And if you take a look from what the Business Roundtable was saying, 98% of CEOs say that they have a skills shortage. We have a problem. 2/3 are struggling to find qualified applicants. 41% a hard time finding jobs. 38% say that the entry-level people lack basic STEM skills. And I'm saying basic STEM skills. I'm not talking about someone who's got a college degree in science, technology, engineering. I'm not talking about the things you would expect from someone who graduated from high school. By the way, where we're headed, I'll talk about this a little bit later, there are no more jobs at places like Siemens. There are no jobs at Siemens for people at high school. Just a high school degree. Doesn't mean you need a 4-year degree, but there are no jobs for people with just a high school degree. So what are we seeing? So 75%, we have 2,000 job openings in the U.S. right now. 2,000 job openings. 75% of them require some post-secondary education in STEM. 75%. Between now and 2020, we're going to have to hire 4,000 to 5,000 in the U.S. 4,000 to 5,000 new software engineers and developers. Where are we going to get them? Right now, we have a shortage of 400 welders, robotic welding. People who know robotic welding. The average salary for those people is $125,000. Can't find them. We've been bringing some of them from the Philippines. Can't find people who can do robotic welding. This isn't basic welding. This is advanced manufacturing welding. Right? On the supply side, what are the things we're having trouble filling? Data analysts. So, as I said, this digital world, you're collecting lots of data, you need to analyze it to make decisions. Very hard to find. Very few schools even have programs for data analytics. Production workers in advanced manufacturing, I just talked about that. Software engineers, software programmers, cybersecurity. So if you're going digital, you also have to be able to protect the information that your customers, information flows between plants and headquarters. And so there's a big demand for cyber analysts. Washington, D.C. area, for example, is one that is trying to build a big capability around cyber. So it's another thing to think about is where do you specialize, because this requires actually starting a lot of this training. We're even pushing in cyber in the D.C. area, pushing into the high schools to start training people. There are going to be hundreds of thousands of jobs that you hear about all the hacking that's going on around the world. This will be a huge new area. You know, I forget the exact numbers, but if you go back between 2000 and 2015, something like 40% of the jobs that were created, new jobs in the U.S., didn't exist before the year 2000. If you take a look between now and 2025, 50% of the jobs will be jobs that didn't exist. I mean, when I joined Siemens 7 years ago, we didn't have any cyber analysts. We didn't have any. Now we can't find enough of them. So this is what's happening very, very quickly, and it's going to happen much faster than the incremental changes that have happened in the past. So I said we make grants. to universities. We've made grants all over the world to leading universities, and quite a few here in Ohio. I think a lot of the big universities, the Ohio G.R.E.A.T here in Ohio State, but a lot of community colleges. We work a lot with community colleges. And I'll tell you why we work a lot with community colleges, because they're flexible. You go to a community college and say, we have some jobs, but we need you to teach A, B, and C. You design a program, you commit to it, you help spend the money to develop a program, and they'll be very adaptable. Getting universities to change? Not so easy. One of the problems we have is we gift this leading industrial software to people. In many cases, engineering programs are using software that's 15, 20 years old, but the professors know it and they love it. But no one's buying it anymore, right? And they're training their students on this old technology. So we grant it, and we even bring in people to help the professors convert their courses, train them. But it takes a long, long time. A lot of the universities we've gifted it to, you'll get some professors who will jump on it and take advantage of it, but getting whole engineering departments to change over is quite difficult. Community colleges, they love it. It's gifted, give us some training, let's get some courses built around it, let's go. And it really matches Siemens' experience with technical schools and things over in Germany. As I mentioned, with the apprentice programs, we started to develop apprenticeships around the country. And actually, I like to kid people, the places where we have apprentices, we do apprenticeships for two types of people. One is high school grads, and one is veterans. The high school grads, I think in a lot of these areas we're putting these in, it's probably tougher to get into the program than it is to an Ivy League school. Why? So here's what we offer people. It's a 3-year program. You're going to go to school part-time, you're going to work in a plant half-time. We're going to pay for the school, and we're going to pay you while you work. You're going to have no student debt. You're going to get a 2-year degree. You're going to get a certificate from the state, whatever you're taking, like mechatronics or robotic welding, and you're going to be guaranteed a job. Guaranteed a job. So I always tell people, when you start all these educational programs, what do you want? Don't look at the inputs, look at the outputs. The output here is, did you create a job? So it's a job. So you have no debt, you got a degree, you got a real skill. I like to joke to people, I graduated from Harvard with an economics degree, but I didn't have a skill. I went to my first job in consulting, I didn't know what a balance sheet was. And that's no joke. I mean, that's one of the things we have coming out of this country. We have, what are the numbers? 70% of the people out of high school go to college, 40% of them never graduate. Of the other 60% that graduate, half of them end up with a job that does not require a bachelor's degree. So the value proposition is about 25 to 30% go to college, get a degree in something where they need the degree. And the average debt is, I heard it was up this year over 30,000, it was 29 or 30,000 of debt. The model doesn't work. We got to find another model. We've got to really change the whole educational system. We've got to start in the K through 12. We've got to work that up into these community colleges and things. We don't say everyone needs a 4-year degree, but you are going to need some post-secondary education. This is one model that we're trying to bring over. We probably needs to be Americanized a bit because the system in Germany is a little bit different. But these are great programs. We're currently doing a big study with the National Government Association, helping them understand best practices for setting up apprenticeships across the country. And 6 states have already signed up for us to help them specifically. We also have online, I was on the President's Council for Advanced Manufacturing. I led the workforce piece. We set up a whole national program around apprenticeships. We put together a playbook for how to set up apprenticeships, and the President put it on his website. So it's good, and I think the President has put $265 million so far in apprenticeships. We need to put a lot more in. Here's a staggering number for you. In Germany, at any one time, there are about 1.5 million young people, basically 18 to 22, in an apprentice program. That's about 50% of the people in that age group in Germany. In the U.S., it's about 400,000 to 500,000, which is about 1% of the young people. The unemployment in Germany for people in that age group is about 6%. In the U.S., it's about 15%. Okay? The bigger thing is not just the unemployment. The bigger issue, I think, is these jobs of the future. They're going to require a whole different set of training than we've got in most of our schools. And a lot of these jobs aren't going to require a 4-year engineering degree from Ohio State. But they are going to require some engineering knowledge, some computer knowledge, some software knowledge, which isn't being taught in most of the high schools those days. So we've got a big gap. We've got a big gap. So it's not just about, people worry about the back end, which is, I want to bring in companies, I want to bring in jobs. And I say, do you have the people who can do the job? This is a big problem in this country. It's a big problem. And Trump wants to bring more jobs, he wants to bring more manufacturing jobs back. We went over and spent some time with the transition team a week ago, talking about what's going to be required. It's not just about closing the borders and building more plants. It's not going to solve the problem. The problem's much bigger than that. I think that's my last slide. I just wanted to end by saying a couple things. The key takeaway for me coming out of the election was that this thing was really about jobs and workforce. I think, as I said before, there are a lot of people who are left behind. People want change, but I think what they really want is higher paying jobs. Real wages in this country. There's two ways to measure how competitive a country is. One is, what's the relative share of investment you're getting globally? How much money that's being invested in the world every year is coming to your country versus other countries? And the U.S. has been in decline since the 1990s. Okay? And a lot of that money went to Asia and China. But anyway, we're in decline. Second thing is, what is the real standard of living? What's happened to the real standard of living and real wages? And except for people with college degrees and advanced degrees, real wages in this country have been on decline since the 1990s. This is what people are mad about. And you know what? There's going to be a lot more people in that bucket because of what I just talked about. If you want to attract more jobs, first thing you've got to do is you've got to attract more investment. And if you attract more investment is going to create more jobs. But if you want to attract the investment and the jobs, you've got to have the skills. You've got to have the people who can do the work. And if I roll the clock ahead just 10 years, the kinds of people that we're going to need in the industrial world, you can already see what's happening in the consumer world. You got a company Uber, $68 billion market capitalization. They got 2,000 people. Where are the jobs? I guess there's a lot of people out there in the, what do they call the economy, the new economy, the sharing. They have another name for gig economy, right? People who work part-time, right? Who try to sell things online and stuff. But there was just a big study that was done by J.P. Morgan Chase that came out, I think, earlier this week that said the jobs are flattening and the incomes, the real wages are declining. So those are not, for most people, those are not the careers they aspire to. So we still need to build that future with the jobs that people aspire to. And I think if we do this right, this will create America's new middle class. Otherwise, the new middle class is going to be built in other parts of the world. It's already being built in other parts of the world. Everyone wants what the U.S. had in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, right? But since the 90s, this company has been in slow decline. There's no doubt about it. I mean, people can say whatever they want to say in government politics, but I'm going to tell you, it's declining. And it's going to require a lot of investment. It's going to require a lot of people. We have trouble finding people who want to work in manufacturing. Even though when you walk into a new manufacturing plant, it's a totally different world than it was 15, 20 years ago. When my grandfather was working in a steel mill, it was unsafe, it was dirty, it was laborious, back-breaking work. That's not the work there anymore. But trying to get young people, when we go out and recruit high school people, we bring them in, we bring parents in too. And it's a tough challenge. Guidance counselors are oftentimes the worst. Because guidance counselors, what is our metric? How many kids from our high school went to college? Right? Not how many of mine do I ultimately get it. Look 5 years out, how many of them got a job? How many of them got a high-paying job? Let's take a look at that. That wouldn't be so pretty. Because a lot of those kids who went to college didn't graduate or didn't find a job in whatever degree they got. It's a tough challenge. But I think, again, I know a lot of governors and lieutenant governors are running around trying to create more jobs. We've got a candidate here trying to create more jobs, and that's all good, bring more investment. But we better make sure we've got the workforce that we need in the future, because I think that's really where the action is going to be. So with that, I'll end. I'll thank all of you for listening. I hope you have some takeaways. I'd be happy to answer a couple of questions. Thank you. Yes.
doing is testing students. And that's all you hear from teachers now. It seems like they just, every time they turn around, they test. Do you feel this type of testing that we see in Ohio, it's probably across the country, is that helping to get students? Because it seems like the testing, basically they're trying to accomplish to get them ready for college instead of maybe, you know, a community college. And testing, is testing a big issue, do you feel? That we're doing too much?
I'm not, the first one, I'm not an expert in what they're doing in Ohio in the second and third grade. So the testing may be required, may be important. I think what they do in other countries, in a lot of European, Germany, Switzerland, the Scandinavian countries, they start young children much earlier, like 12 years old, and they start talking to them about what are the options out there. In the U.S., people are very afraid of what they call tracking, which is pushing kids into careers that they want. But in Germany, less than half of kids, high school graduates, go to college. More than half go into apprentice programs. They have over 300 of them. And it's not the A and B students go to university, and the C and D students don't. In Germany, my CFO in the U.S. went to an apprentice program. Half the businesses that are run around the world by Siemens, the Germans, are run by people who started out as an apprentice. They just see it as another track. They see it as the beginning of their career. And they get exposed very early on, 12, 13, 14 years old, that there are some of these here are these career paths you ought to start thinking about. And that gives them time to start thinking what they really like, where their aptitude is, and they can start moving around. We sort of graduate kids from high school, send them off to college. How many high school graduates have any clue what they might say, I want to be an NBA basketball player. What do they really know about what they want? They haven't been exposed to anything. Right? And so I think that, to me, and in college, here's another shocking number. Less than a third of the universities or liberal arts colleges in the country have a requirement for an internship. So now you can go through high school, and now you can go through actually the average is 5 or 6 years to graduate, the ones that do graduate, and have no actual work experience. So now you're showing up at my doorstep, and you're saying, I got a degree in economics. Yeah? What skill do you have? Or maybe, whatever it was in, right? Engineers you can put to work, because a lot of engineers do apprentice programs, because companies want to bring them in early and convince them to come to work for their company. But we've got a huge number of people that don't have the skills, aren't working towards skills that are going to end up in jobs, and they don't have any work experience. And I think that, to me, that's one of the things we need to rethink. And I think this is one of the reasons why we want to get manufacturing back. We want to be high tech. We want to have the latest and greatest. But in Germany, they still have the highest percent of manufacturing to GDP because they invest in it. They start early in the education process, all the way through these apprentice programs and things. They have a structure, and the government supports it, businesses support it. We have 10,000 apprentices in Germany. Siemens, just Siemens. 10,000. And we're required. We have to have that. So, and even in high schools, we have over 100 programs in high schools for Siemens in Germany. So, we've got to start thinking about how we start getting young people more oriented to what's happening in the world, how to get them excited about these jobs. And then I think not everyone needs to go to a 4-year college, because it's already proven out. I mean, it's not right for everyone, because 40% of the kids never make it through. And the ones who do, a lot of them don't need that degree. Maybe another degree would have been better. So we have, by the way, for that apprentice program that I was talking about, we have a lot of 4-year graduates of colleges applying for the apprentice program. It's a great thing for veterans, actually, because the military is fairly technical these days. So a lot of the veterans have pretty good technical training. You can get them into these programs pretty quickly, and so we're a big sponsor of that. But yeah, so I don't know about the testing, but I think more exposure earlier would be good.
Given your broad scope both in the U.S. and abroad, what do you think Ohio's strengths are to move in this direction? And then where do you think our challenges are, again, to move in the direction of more apprenticeships, more of the culture around encouraging students to go into manufacturing?
Yeah, that's a
Compared
great
to the
question.
Carolinas, compared to
Yeah.
the South, I mean, how do you see us situated?
I'm trying to think about the two questions you asked there. Well, one is, I think, first of all, Ohio and the U.S. in general, but Ohio in particular, has great universities. the university system isn't our issue. So we have great universities and they're turning out good people. Ohio has a very strong work ethic, so it's one of the things that we like a lot here. But one of the issues that Ohio has to face is, we bought a 100-year-old plant in Norway, Ohio, where we make advanced engines, and we had to spend $30–40 million modernizing and upgrading. It's one of the oldest manufacturing facilities in the country. Actually, it's 130 years old or something, late 1800s. A lot of the facilities in Youngstown, not just Youngstown, but in Ohio in general, are dated. Actually, the whole country has a big issue, but in particular, the Northeast and the Midwest. If you take a look at the manufacturing that's moved into the Southeast, they're getting a lot of the new investment, right? Now, whether that's around labor costs or whether it's around climate or whatever, I don't think it's an education issue per se. I don't think South Carolina has been doing great. I don't think South Carolina has a better educational system than Ohio. I think the whole country has to lift itself up on that dimension. So I think that's more. And I think the challenge is more K through 12 and giving young people more alternatives that are going to lead to jobs. And we got to get more focused on, because if you take a look at this issue that came out of the election, we got to get more focused on creating jobs. And you have to have the people who've got the skills for the jobs. That will attract investment. Believe me, when we look at making investment, we look at where one of the biggest criteria is where are we going to be able to find the people for these jobs, right? And that's becoming different. I was down with the head of the BMW plant in Spartanburg. It's their biggest BMW, Spartanburg, South Carolina. It's their biggest plant in the world. And they're a huge customer, as you can imagine, being a big German automotive company. And they said they almost didn't build the expansion. They almost went to Mexico because they couldn't. They're afraid that South Carolina is not going to be able to have enough of the kinds of skilled people that they need. And in Mexico, you can get a person with an engineering degree working on the shop floor for the same cost as someone without an engineering degree. And as I said, these jobs are getting more high tech, right? So they churn out per capita a lot more engineers than we do in the U.S. Mexico does. Right? So it's not just about cheap labor down there, because a lot of the cheap labor issue in advanced manufacturing is not a major issue anymore. And as we go more and more digital, the labor cost itself is going to be relatively. That plant I showed you in Germany, the Augsburg, there's not that many people working on the shop floor. There's not a question of. And by the way, Germany is almost 100% unionized. The worst concept. Right? So it's not a union issue. It's not a labor issue on the shop floor. It's really about making sure people got the skills. In Germany, they just did a study. I think yesterday, 2 days ago, the Department of Commerce released a report. I'm on Secretary Pritzker's investment council, helping her and the administration think about how to attract more foreign investment. They just came out with a report about apprenticeships. This is apprenticeship period, so they came out with a report. They've done a study of 13 companies with apprentice programs, Siemens being one of them. And they found out that one of the things is that those people are a year to two more ahead in terms of productivity than a typical worker that they hire. And that's because they've got the classroom and the on-the-job experience. You just make yourself a lot more valuable if you've actually been. It's even like working in a big company. People who've worked in a company before, when they come in, you can assimilate and get them productive much faster than someone who's never been inside a company before, because they just don't know how to operate. The same thing, even more important on a factory floor or in a power plant or something like that. So getting these internships, signing up companies to invest in young people and get them working in their company, and also get them focused on developing the right skills. I think if most young people, when we get young people out of high schools in to see, that they're programming robots in a manufacturing plant, and they're using lasers, and everything is computerized in the plant, they get pretty excited about that. Even using the Oculus viewers. We now do training with the virtual Oculus lenses. So if they're learning to train on repairing a turbine, for example, they'll use the glasses and the turbine will be in front of them, and the instructor can show them how to take apart the turbine. There's no turbine there. It's just in the glasses. Right? So they can now do it in the classroom. They don't need to take you down to the shop floor and let's tear them apart. They can do it virtually right here in the room. That's where all of this is going pretty quickly. So. But I think Ohio has some good advantages. I mean, the old advantages aren't as important as they used to be. I think that you said the challenges, the being in the middle of the transportation hub and the rail hub and the highways and being on the lake. Those are all good things. And for some businesses, those are really important. For other businesses in this new economy, they're going to be less important. And I think you need to start thinking about, when we start going to a more distributed manufacturing world, where people are building plants that are about as big as this room and 3D printing things, how do you attract those kinds of businesses? Because they'll have something like 25 engineers and programmers working in it. I was in one the other day outside of Washington. They do cars, they do drones, they have a big contract with Airbus to do drones, buildings about this big. And they're not doing the engineering. They go online and crowdsource. They have 600 teams around the world working on the next design for Airbus's drone. And then they're going to pay the people with the best. So it's even a virtual engineering system. Right? So now you don't even have to work for a company. You want to be an engineer. You're really good at programming and using the kinds of software I'm talking about here. You can do it from home. And a lot of companies like that. It's a whole different model that's developing out there with this digital age. So I think we need to start thinking about how are you going to attract those kinds of businesses into the state. Yeah.
Can you talk about apprenticeships? In Ohio, we have some trade apprenticeships.
So this is one of the issues I think we're facing. We took the initiative to say, hey, we've got this need and we can't find it here locally. So we went to a local community college and said, hey, here's what we need. Will you work with us to do that? Right? There was no high school program in the area. This is the disconnect that I think companies are seeing with it. I had the skills gap page up there that CEOs are seeing, is that a lot of these traditional programs aren't filling the needs that they have in the workforce. Now, we went and did that. In Germany, the way they would do that is they use the local chamber of commerces. Whatever they call it something different, but basically the businesses and the educational institution and the local government. And sometimes that can cut across German states, or across, it could be between Canada, the US, whatever. But they kind of draw a circle and say, okay, what are the jobs we have today? What are the jobs we're trying to attract in the future? Where do we have these gaps? And what kind of programs do we need? And which schools? And then get the companies to say, hey, how many of these kinds of jobs? In Germany, they actually match up how many of these jobs they have with how many people will go into the apprentice programs. And over the last decade, they were telling me last time I was over there, they have over 300 apprentice models. And even if you want to be a chef, if you want to be a nurse. But they've gotten rid of 25 of the apprenticeships and they've added 31. So they're constantly changing what's needed in the marketplace. Like, 10 years ago, they didn't have a cyber program. Now they got 3 different cyber apprentice programs depending on what area of cyber you want to work on. But that's done, it's not done even nationally, it's done locally. And they only have 5 states. They're a third the size of the US. But as I said, they're a third the size and they've got 50 times the percentage of people who are, So just think of the starting worker in Germany today versus the starting worker here. It's a productivity issue. Right?
It's a defined opportunity in this context.
Yeah, it's not that the people are any better. It's not that the people are any better, but they've been trained.
And businesses are forthright about their needs, projections of their needs.
Yeah.
which is
Well, in Germany, the thing that won't work here, I think, is it's a little bit top down and then they require companies to participate. I don't think that's going to work.
Okay, yeah.
But I think, what we've seen is when we build it, they will come. So we put the one in Charlotte I talked about. Now there's about 13 companies who all participate. So now they have some scale. Now they've got, 50, 60, 70, 80 people going through the program. And we invest a lot of money to set up and write the curriculum to send people to be trained. In Germany, the government does that. So basically in Germany, the government pays for the training part, and we pay when they work for us. Right? So in Germany, you say, okay, I'm going to take, at this plant, I'm going to take 35 apprentices, and I'm going to pay them whatever I'm going to pay them. And the way we do it over a 3-year period, they start at minimum wage and then they slowly go up. Interestingly, for these jobs here at Charlotte, the starting salary after 3 years is $55,000 a year. So you've been 3 years in school, you have no debt, you're guaranteed a job if you pass the courses, and you have a degree and a certificate. Right? And you can keep going to school. This is a woman who's been interviewed by a lot of people in Congress. Her first name is Hope, which I think is great. And she's had a lot of people from Capitol Hill and going down and interviewing her. She's been very good. She's been on CBS Night News, I think, and other places. talking about, she was salutatorian of her high school class, and she went this path. And the idea is she wants to get a 4-year degree, but she says, now I have no debt, I've got a job, I'm making good money, starting at $55,000. I've been making money while I've been working, and I'm going to go to night school. Siemens is paying for it. I want to get my 4-year degree, and then I want to keep going up the ranks of the plant and get into management and those kind of things. So it's a whole different way to think about it. And you know, Secretary Clinton was talking about, I think President Obama was talking about free community college. I think Bernie Sanders and Hillary were talking about free college. A lot of people excited. And I think even in some states like Tennessee have free community college already, which is a Republican governor of that state. But this is a model for free college. Think about it. This is a model for free college. Now you got to earn it. You got. There's none of this. I'm not going to graduate. You're not Joel in school. You're out. Same thing in church. But the idea is, you know, you're going to get paid while you work. You're going to get. We pay for school, but now some of the states, in some states like South Carolina, I think Nikki Haley has got a program to subsidize the training of apprentice programs. And some of the other states are coming up. I think California has a subsidy. We have a big program going out there in Sacramento. But for students, it's basically, I don't take on any debt. I'm getting paid a little bit of money. I'm getting a degree. It's and it's just as opposed to I'm going to take on a lot of debt and hope I get a job. It's a very good. Now, college is a great thing. I'm not saying we don't want kids going to college. I mean, I think it's a great thing that a lot of kids in the U.S. go to college. But I think we've got to start thinking about it's probably not the right thing for everybody. And there's another path, even if you are an A student and you were salutatorian in your class, there's another path you can take to a great career and a great job. And by the way, as I said, a lot of the senior executives at Siemens started out working as apprentices in plants. I'm a little bit jealous because they're running businesses today. They actually know how the hell a plant works. You know, I went to Harvard. I never got inside of a plant. You know, I never, except when I saw my grandfathers come home from the steel mill. But the point is, you know, I think it is a different path. We need to do a better job of marketing and convincing young people that this is a viable career path into a high-paying, and this is easily an entry into the middle class for a lot of these careers. And by the way, I said, so 3 years, $55,000, and you're paid while you go to school, no debt. The average liberal arts grad, people know what the average liberal arts grad, 4 years, actually it takes more than 4 years, average $29,000, $30,000 in debt. Average starting salary is $40,000. Okay, and people say, well, long-term liberal arts graduates do better. Yeah, but with this new model, these people are going to, you know, they're not going to have the burden of coming out of school with $35,000 in debt. Now, I went to a liberal arts school. I'm not saying anything negative about liberal arts, but we can't have everyone going to liberal arts school. You know?
Aren't you arguably paying for the education anyway? I mean, when you think of the multi-billions of dollars we spend in Ohio just on K-12.
Yeah.
So what I think I hear you saying is it's not that the government's not spending the money. We're not spending it the right place.
Exactly. That's what I think. I think it's a redistribution and a refocus. You know, a lot of the K-12 schools aren't going to like it because they're going to have to teach different courses and they're going to have to get different people who can teach those courses. I mean, it's the same thing at the college level. You know, if you want to do this, you got to convince people, hey, just because you're tenured, you can't keep teaching the same stuff you've been teaching the last 20 years because there's no jobs. I think Mitch Daniels is a good example. Anyone read what Mitch Daniels has done at Purdue? You know, he was the governor of Indiana, the Republican governor. And he came in as a president. He said, we have one of the best engineering programs in the world. All of our engineers get jobs. I'm doubling the size of the engineering program. And I don't know the exact details. And he said to the other departments, he said, we're going to start putting metrics on you about outcomes, about how many people are getting into the best graduate schools, how many people are landing in jobs, how many people aren't landing in jobs, and then that's going to dictate what your budget is, as opposed to just keep getting the same budget.
Well, in
And
Ohio, we have a new funding system for public institutions.
Right, I've heard about it, yeah. Jim Tressel was facing through that.
Right, it's like person's enrollment, so I mean, there's.
Right. But I think this transformation, it's like any disruption. I mean, look at companies that have been disrupted. It's, you know, I'm going through this. We have 45 businesses in the U.S. and at any one time, 5 or 6 of them going through disruption. It's painful. But I think we're going to have to get the education system to start taking a look at the same kind of thing so that we we get out in front of this problem.
Is there anybody doing that either nationally or in state being disruptive, whether it's a nonprofit group is talking about this disruption in education?
I've heard about some programs. I know in New York State, IBM has put in a program in high schools, and you heard, I forget the acronym for, maybe somebody here knows it, but they basically have a program where they add 2 years to K through 12. IBM is funding the program. They're guaranteeing to hire people who are graduates, but you start taking computer science in like 9th grade and different types of computer science, and it's a whole career path, and it takes you, I don't know if it's 1 year or 2 years more. But if you go through that program, you're guaranteed a job by IBM when you come out. And they went in and they had 5 high schools that signed up for this. Now they've got high schools all over the country that want the same program. I forget the name of the program, but that's been a pretty successful program. Again, IBM, all the big IT companies are realizing, many thousands of people, where are they going to come from in this country? So, anyway, I think I've got a lot. I just want, do you have a quick question?
I have a quickie, and to respond to that, the panel session at 3, we talked a bit about an innovative model we're doing in Canada, which we're happy to share, about graduate research internship programs to make even the university's research programs more relevant to society. But my question is, you're talking about manufacturing jobs, and that's the critical, massive jobs. You have a lot of jobs there, but I was curious to hear your opinion on the research and technology side of it, especially being a German company, but the American subsidiary. So, like, what's your relationship in research and technology, and what role could the country have to stay ahead of the curve with the next technologies and make sure that we're producing new and innovative companies and staying relevant?
Right. So I think a lot of universities. So first of all, we spend about 25% of our global research budget. That's $1.2 billion, $1.3 billion, whatever it is. We do a lot of work with universities. We do a lot of work with the national labs. A lot of universities are now inviting us in to actually put research people on campus working directly with their people and students. This Internet of Things is a great area to get direct engagement between university students and companies that are doing that research, as opposed to the old model of sitting in some central lab somewhere. We're getting, most of our research now is done either at our plants or at universities. A lot of universities have gotten very creative about how they take all the IP constraints. It used to be you wanted to do research with the university, to be a document about this thick, about all the rules and what's going to happen to the IP and everything. Now most universities said, hey, we don't know how to manage IP anyway. We're going to take that off the table. If you're helping to train our people and hire our students, that's really where we want to focus. Yeah, and something big comes out of it, we can share a little bit that. So I think that's changing pretty dramatically. And we work with most of the big research universities, like Ohio G.R.E.A.T. We work a lot with, and we work a lot with the big hospitals like the clinic and other hospitals and things doing research. So we think this is the best country in the world to do research. I mean, the university systems for the graduate programs, the national labs, NIH, and those people, this is a tremendous place to do